The alarm clock buzzed at 5:30 in the morning, its cheap plastic casing vibrating against the worn nightstand. Maria Delgado opened her eyes to the cracked ceiling of her studio apartment in the Bronx, the same ceiling she had stared at for 3 years now. The paint peeled in the corner like dead skin, revealing layers of previous tenants' lives beneath. She turned off the alarm before it could wake her daughter, 7-year-old Sophia, who slept on the pull-out couch just feet away. The September morning was already humid, the kind that made your clothes stick to your skin before you even stepped outside. Through the thin walls, she could hear her neighbor's television, always on, always too loud. Maria stood slowly, her back protesting. At 32, she felt 50. 2 jobs would do that to you. The overnight shift at the packaging warehouse, then the afternoon shift at the diner on Webster Avenue. 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Her hands were permanently dry from the industrial soap at the warehouse, her feet constantly aching from standing. She moved quietly through her morning routine, practiced and efficient. Make coffee with the last grounds in the container. Check the fridge. 3 eggs left, half a loaf of bread, some butter. Enough for Sophia's breakfast. She would eat at the diner later, whatever mistakes came out of the kitchen that they let staff take home. The rent was due in 4 days. She had counted the money 3 times last night. She was $47 short. $47 that might as well have been $4,000. By 6:15, Sophia was awake, rubbing her eyes with small fists. Maria had already laid out her school clothes, already packed her lunch, already signed the permission slip for the field trip her daughter probably wouldn't go on because it required $20 Maria didn't have. They ate together in comfortable silence, Sophia drawing on scrap paper while Maria mentally calculated her tips from yesterday. $16. Not enough. Never enough. At 7, they left the apartment, descending 4 flights of stairs because the elevator had been broken for 2 months. The morning air outside was thick and gray, that peculiar quality of light that comes just before full sunrise in New York City. The streets were already awake. Delivery trucks rumbled past. Shop owners raised their security gates with metallic clangs that echoed between buildings. Maria walked Sophia to the bus stop 3 blocks away, holding her daughter's hand tightly as they crossed intersections where drivers rarely stopped for pedestrians. She kissed Sophia's forehead as the yellow bus pulled up, watching until her daughter was safely inside and seated. Then Maria was alone. She had 2 hours before her shift at the diner. 2 hours she usually spent at the public library using the free Wi-Fi to search for better jobs, filling out applications that never got responses. But today, her body ached more than usual. The warehouse shift had been brutal. 12 hours of lifting, sorting, scanning. Her supervisor had yelled at her for being too slow, threatened her hours. She needed to sit somewhere that wasn't work, wasn't home, somewhere she could just breathe. Maria walked to Crotona Park, a 15-minute journey through streets she knew by heart, past the bodega where the owner always greeted her in Spanish, past the church with the soup kitchen where she had eaten when things got really bad, past the pawn shop where she had sold her grandmother's ring 2 years ago. The park was quiet at this hour. A few joggers traced the paths. An elderly man fed pigeons near the entrance. Maria found her usual bench near the lake, a small body of water that reflected the gradually brightening sky. She sat down, closed her eyes, and for just a moment allowed herself to feel the weight of everything. The exhaustion lived in her bones now. It wasn't just physical anymore. It was the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. The kind that came from fighting every single day just to stay in place, watching other people move forward while you remained stuck, invisible, forgotten. She thought about Sophia's face this morning, how her daughter never complained, never asked for the toys other kids had, never mentioned that her sneakers were 2 sizes too small. 7 years old and already learning to make herself smaller, to want less, to expect nothing. What kind of life was Maria giving her? The question hurt more than her aching feet, more than her empty stomach, more than the $47 she didn't have. She opened her eyes and stared at the lake. The water was still, almost mirror-like in the early light. Ducks glided across the surface, leaving V-shaped ripples in their wake. For a moment, everything felt almost peaceful. Then she heard it. A scream. Not a playful scream. Not the kind children make when they're having fun. This was pure terror, raw and desperate. Maria's eyes snapped to the source. Near the far edge of the lake, maybe 60 yards away, a woman was pointing at the water, her mouth open in horror. Maria stood, her heart suddenly pounding. A small figure thrashed in the water. A child. A boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old, his arms flailing, his head going under, coming up, going under again. For one frozen second, Maria's mind registered everything with terrible clarity. The woman on the shore wasn't moving, paralyzed by panic. There was no one else nearby. The joggers were too far away. The boy was drowning. She didn't think. Maria ran. Her worn sneakers slapped against the concrete path as she sprinted around the edge of the lake. Her lungs burned. Her legs, already tired from the night shift, screamed in protest. But she ran faster than she had run in years, faster than she thought possible. The boy went under again. This time he didn't come back up. Maria reached the edge and didn't stop. She jumped. The water was shockingly cold, driving the air from her lungs. It was deeper than she expected. Over her head immediately. She couldn't swim well, had never learned properly, but she kicked toward where she had seen the boy disappear. Her clothes dragged at her, heavy and waterlogged. The murky water made it impossible to see. She reached down, sweeping her arms through the dark, searching. Her fingers brushed something. Fabric. She grabbed it, pulled, and the boy's body came toward her. He was limp, terrifyingly still. Maria kicked upward, breaking the surface with a desperate gasp. The boy's face was pale, his lips already turning blue. She wrapped one arm around his small chest and began struggling toward the shore, her free arm pulling through the water in clumsy strokes. It seemed to take forever. Each stroke was agony. Water filled her mouth and nose. Her muscles screamed. The shore seemed to move farther away with each desperate pull, but she didn't let go. She would never let go. Finally, her feet touched the muddy bottom. She stood, stumbled, half carried and half dragged the boy onto the grass. By now, others had arrived. The woman who had been screaming was there, along with a man in jogging clothes and someone already on a phone calling for help. Maria laid the boy on his back. His chest wasn't moving, his eyes were closed. She had seen this on television once in a show Sophia was watching. She turned the boy's head to the side and water poured from his mouth. Then she placed him on his back again, tilted his chin up, pinched his nose, and breathed into his small mouth. 1 breath, 2 breaths. Nothing. She placed her hands on his chest, one over the other, and pressed down in steady rhythms, counting in her head. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Her arms shook. Her vision blurred. She didn't know if she was doing it right. She only knew she couldn't stop. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. The boy's body convulsed. He coughed, water erupting from his mouth. His eyes flew open, wide and confused and alive. Maria pulled him onto his side as he coughed and gasped, his small body shaking. She held him there, supporting him, as his breathing slowly steadied. The sound of sirens grew closer. The woman who had been screaming was crying now, thanking Maria over and over in words that seemed to come from far away. The jogger was saying something about being a hero. Others had gathered, a small crowd, their faces blurred. Maria barely heard them. She was staring at the boy, watching his chest rise and fall. Alive. He was alive. Paramedics arrived, moving with professional efficiency. They took the boy from Maria's arms, checked his vitals, wrapped him in blankets. Police officers appeared, asking questions. Maria answered mechanically, her voice sounding strange in her own ears. Her name, what had happened, where she lived. One of the officers asked if she needed medical attention. She shook her head. She was fine. Just wet. Just tired. The boy was being loaded into an ambulance. He was awake now, crying for his mother. That was good, Maria thought distantly. Crying meant breathing. Crying meant life. A woman in an expensive-looking coat approached Maria, her face pale with shock. She tried to speak, her voice breaking. She tried to thank Maria, tried to offer something, but Maria just shook her head. She didn't want anything. She had just done what anyone would do, what anyone should do. As the ambulance pulled away, sirens fading into the city's constant noise, the crowd began to disperse. The excitement was over. People returned to their jogging, their dog walking, their own lives. Maria stood alone on the grass, soaking wet, shivering despite the warm morning. Her clothes clung to her body. Her sneakers squelched when she moved. She checked the cheap watch on her wrist. It had stopped, the face filled with water. She was going to be late for her shift at the diner. Maria walked back through the park, leaving wet footprints on the concrete path. The elderly man was still feeding his pigeons. He nodded at her as she passed, but said nothing. The world continued turning, indifferent to miracles. By the time she reached the diner, her clothes had mostly dried, though she still looked disheveled, her hair wild and tangled. Her manager, a heavy-set man named Frank who smelled like cigarettes, took one look at her and frowned. She tried to explain, but he cut her off. He didn't care about excuses. She was 45 minutes late. He was docking her pay. One more incident and she was fired. Maria nodded, tied on her apron, and began her shift. She served coffee to businessmen who didn't look at her face. She cleared tables of food that people barely touched, enough waste to feed her and Sophia for a week. She smiled at customers who snapped their fingers to get her attention, who left quarters as tips, who complained that their eggs were too runny or not runny enough. She was invisible again. By the time her shift ended at 6, her body was beyond exhaustion. She picked up Sophia from the after-school program, listened to her daughter talk about her day, held her hand as they walked home through streets that were now dark and loud with evening traffic. They ate dinner together, rice and beans made to stretch. Sophia did her homework at the small table while Maria washed their few dishes. They watched half an hour of television on the old set that only got basic channels. Then it was bedtime for Sophia, though Maria still had hours of chores before she could rest. As she tucked her daughter in, Sophia looked up at her with serious brown eyes. "Mama, why do you look so sad today?" Maria forced a smile, kissed her daughter's forehead. "I'm not sad, mija. Just tired." "You're always tired." The words, spoken with a child's simple honesty, hit Maria harder than any insult from her manager, any impatience from a customer. She had no response. She just held Sophia until her daughter's breathing deepened into sleep. Later, alone in the dark, Maria lay on her own thin mattress and stared at the cracked ceiling. She thought about the boy in the lake, about his small body going limp in her arms, about the moment his eyes opened. She had saved a life today, but tomorrow, she would wake up to the same cracked ceiling, the same unpaid rent, the same exhausting treadmill of work and worry. Nothing had changed. Nothing ever changed. Maria closed her eyes, too tired even for tears. She had no idea that at that very moment, in a penthouse suite across the city, powerful men were learning her name, searching for her address, making plans that would alter the course of her life forever. She had no idea that tomorrow everything would change. What happens when the most powerful man in the city arrives at Maria's door? Will this poor mother's life transform? Or will the darkness of the underworld consume everything she's built? Stay with us to find out. Maria woke to the sound of car engines. Not the normal morning traffic, the buses and taxis and delivery trucks that formed the constant background noise of the Bronx. These engines were different, deeper, more powerful, and there were many of them all at once. She checked her watch. 6 in the morning. Sophia was still asleep. Maria went to the window and looked down at the street below. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. Black SUVs. 7 of them, maybe 8. Lined up along both sides of her street like a presidential motorcade. They were pristine, expensive, completely out of place in this neighborhood where most cars were held together with duct tape and prayer. Men in dark suits stood beside the vehicles. They weren't moving, weren't talking, just standing there, waiting. Their posture was military straight, their faces hidden behind sunglasses despite the early hour. Maria's heart began to pound. This wasn't normal. This wasn't anything close to normal. She looked at the other buildings. Curtains twitched in windows. She could see faces, pale and frightened, peering out. But no one came outside. The street, usually alive with people heading to work, was completely empty except for the men in suits. It was as if the entire neighborhood was holding its breath. A knock at her door made Maria jump. 3 sharp raps, precise and commanding. She stood frozen, her mind racing. Had she done something wrong yesterday at the park? Were these police? Immigration? Her papers were in order, had been since she was a child. But in this neighborhood, you learn to fear official-looking vehicles and men in suits. The knock came again, louder this time. Maria moved to the door on shaking legs. She looked through the peephole, but all she could see was a dark suit and a broad chest. Whoever was outside was standing too close to the door. "Who is it?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Miss Delgado. Maria Delgado." It wasn't a question. The voice was male, deep, with an accent she couldn't quite place. "We need you to open the door. You are not in danger." The fact that he said she wasn't in danger only made her more afraid. "Mama?" Sophia's voice, sleepy and confused, came from behind her. "What's happening?" "Stay there, mija," Maria said without turning around. Everything's okay. But everything was not okay. She unlocked the door with trembling fingers and opened it just a crack, keeping the chain lock engaged. The man outside was indeed wearing a dark suit, perfectly tailored, probably costing more than 3 months of Maria's rent. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with graying hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. Behind him, Maria could see her narrow hallway, and at the top of the stairs 2 more men in suits. They weren't holding weapons, but the way they stood suggested they didn't need to. "Miss Delgado," the man at her door said, his voice softer now but no less commanding. "My employer would like to speak with you. He is waiting downstairs." "Your employer?" Maria's mouth was dry. "I don't understand. Who?" "The boy you saved yesterday," the man interrupted gently. "From the lake. He was my employer's son." Maria's mind went blank for a moment. The boy. The little boy with the blue lips and the desperate cough. She had almost forgotten, buried under the weight of her usual worries. "Is he okay?" The question came automatically. "The boy, is he all right?" Something flickered in the man's stone face. It might have been respect. "He is alive and healthy because of you. Which is why my employer is here, to thank you personally." "I don't need thanks," Maria said quickly. "I just did what anyone would." "Not anyone." The man's voice was firm now. "Most people would have watched. You jumped. There is a difference." Maria glanced back at Sophia, who was now sitting up on the couch watching with wide, frightened eyes. "I have to get my daughter ready for school. Can I come down later? Can you give me a number to call?" The man's expression didn't change, but Maria sensed something shift. "Miss Delgado, my employer is Alessandro Vitale. Do you know this name?" Maria shook her head. The man seemed genuinely surprised. "You watch the news?" "I don't have time for news." "Then I will be direct. Alessandro Vitale is a very important man. When he requests your presence, you come. But I assure you, you and your daughter are completely safe. In fact, you are safer now than you have ever been in your life." There was something in the way he said it, a gravity that transcended threat and somehow landed on truth. Maria looked into his eyes, trying to find deception, but found only certainty. "My daughter has school. She will not miss school. My employer understands you have obligations. He asks only for a few minutes of your time." Maria looked at Sophia again, at her small face filled with confusion and fear, at the worn couch where her daughter slept every night, at the cracked walls and peeling paint of the only home they had. She thought about the $47 she still didn't have, about Frank at the diner who would fire her for one more incident, about the treadmill that never stopped turning. She thought about powerful men who came in black SUVs and made entire streets go silent. And she thought about a little boy's eyes opening, seeing life return to his face, knowing she had given that back to him. "Okay," she said quietly. "Let me get dressed." The man nodded. "Take your time. We will be here." Maria closed the door and leaned against it, her heart hammering. Sophia had gotten off the couch and was standing in the middle of the small room, her face pale. "Mama, who are those men?" Maria went to her daughter and knelt down, taking Sophia's small hands in hers. "Remember yesterday how Mama saved a little boy from drowning?" Sophia nodded. Maria had told her about it last night, though she had downplayed the danger, made it sound less dramatic than it was. "Well, that little boy's father wants to say thank you. That's all. These men work for him." "Are they police?" "No, mija. They're not police." "Then why does everyone look so scared?" Maria had no good answer for that. She just hugged her daughter tight and whispered, "Sometimes important people just have that effect. But we're safe. I promise." She got dressed quickly, choosing the nicest clothes she owned, which wasn't saying much. A pair of black pants with a small stain she hoped wasn't visible and a blue blouse that was only slightly faded. She brushed her hair, washed her face, and tried to make herself look like someone worth speaking to. Sophia got dressed too, though her school day didn't start for 2 more hours. Maria wasn't leaving her daughter alone in the apartment, not with all those men outside. When they emerged into the hallway, the 2 men in suits stepped aside without a word, allowing them to pass. Maria held Sophia's hand tightly as they descended the 4 flights of stairs. The building was silent. Not a single neighbor had emerged from their apartments. Even Mrs. Rodriguez on the 3rd floor, who was always up at dawn to pray, had her door shut tight. Outside, the morning had grown lighter, but the street remained empty of anyone except the men in suits. They stood like statues facing outward, creating an invisible perimeter that no one dared to cross. One of the SUVs had its rear door open. The man who had knocked on Maria's door gestured toward it. "Please?" Maria approached slowly. Sophia pressed against her side. As she got closer, she could see into the vehicle's interior. The seats were leather, pristine and probably worth more than everything Maria owned combined. And sitting in the back seat was a man. Even seated, Maria could tell he was tall. He wore a suit that made the other men's expensive clothing look cheap by comparison. His hair was dark, touched with gray at the temples, combed back from a face that was striking in its severity. Strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, eyes so dark they looked black. But it was more than his appearance that made Maria's breath catch. It was the way he held himself, the absolute stillness, the sense that this was a man who had never doubted his place in the world, who had never had to make himself smaller, who commanded respect through simple existence. He looked at Maria, and she felt pinned by his gaze as if he could see through her cheap clothes and tired face, straight into the core of who she was. "Miss Delgado," he said. His voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an accent that suggested Italian heritage. "Thank you for coming down. I apologize for the intrusion at such an early hour." Maria found her voice with effort. "Your man said you wanted to thank me. For your son. Marco." The name came out soft, and for just a moment something human flickered in those dark eyes. "His name is Marco. He is 5 years old. And yesterday, you gave him back to me." "How is he?" Maria asked. "Is he really okay?" "He is home. He is healthy. The doctors found no lasting damage." Alessandro Vitale's jaw tightened. "He should not have been at that park. His nanny was distracted. She has been—" He paused. "Dismissed." There was something in the way he said that last word that sent a chill down Maria's spine. "I'm glad he's all right," Maria said carefully. "Really? But you didn't need to come all this way. I don't need anything." "You don't need anything," Alessandro repeated, and something that might have been amusement touched his face. "Do you know how rare that sentence is in my world? Everyone needs something. Everyone wants something. But you jumped into that lake without hesitation, saved my son's life, and walked away without asking for a reward." "It wasn't about reward," Maria said. "He was a child. He was drowning." "Yes, he was." Alessandro leaned forward slightly. "And I have spent the past 24 hours learning everything about you, Maria Delgado. Single mother, 2 jobs, behind on rent, raising your daughter alone in a 4-story walk-up with no elevator, fighting every day just to survive." Maria felt her face flush. The knowledge that this powerful man had invaded her privacy, had learned her struggles, her private shames, made her feel exposed and vulnerable. "That's my business," she said, more sharply than she intended. "Not yours. It became my business the moment you saved my son." Alessandro's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. "You risked your life for Marco without hesitation. Do you understand what that means to me? It means I'm a decent person. That's all." "No." Alessandro shook his head slowly. "Decent people call for help. Decent people wait for someone else to act. You jumped. You almost drowned yourself. For a child you didn't know, expecting nothing in return." He paused. "That is not decency. That is something far more rare." Maria didn't know what to say to that. She held Sophia's hand tighter. Alessandro's gaze shifted to Sophia, and his expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Your daughter, Sophia, yes?" Sophia pressed closer to her mother but didn't answer. "I have a daughter too," Alessandro said quietly. "Isabella. She is 8. And I have Marco. They are my entire world. The reason I breathe. The reason I—" He trailed off, then looked back at Maria. "You gave me back my son. There is no amount of money that equals such a debt." "I don't want money," Maria said firmly. "Please. I just want to go back to my normal life." "Your normal life?" Alessandro's voice carried a note of something Maria couldn't identify. "Working yourself to death for poverty wages while your daughter grows up in a building with a broken elevator and dealers on the corners. Is that what you want to go back to?" The words stung, because they were true. Maria's pride flared. "It's honest work. It's what I can do. And I'm raising my daughter right. I can see that." Alessandro gestured at Sophia. "She is well-mannered, quiet, respectful. You are doing an excellent job with nothing. Imagine what you could do with resources." I don't need charity. This is not charity. Alessandro's voice sharpened. This is a debt. You saved my son's life. In my world, in the world I come from, such a debt is sacred. It must be repaid, not with money, not with gifts, but with something far more valuable. What? Maria asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. Alessandro Vitale looked at her with those dark, fathomless eyes. Protection. The word hung in the air between them. I don't understand, Maria said slowly. From this moment forward, Alessandro said, each word deliberate and weighted. You are under my protection, you and your daughter. Anyone who threatens you, anyone who harms you, anyone who even thinks about causing you trouble. He paused. They will answer to me. And trust me, Miss Delgado, no one wants to answer to me. Maria's heart was pounding again. She thought about the silent street, the frightened faces and windows, the way this man's presence seemed to bend reality around him. Who are you? She whispered. Really? Alessandro smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I am someone who keeps his promises. I am someone who pays his debts. And I am someone who never forgets when someone saves what matters most to him. He leaned back in his seat. You will find, Miss Delgado, that your life has changed as of yesterday morning. Your landlord will no longer bother you about rent. Your employers will treat you with respect. The dealers on your corner will disappear. Your daughter will be safe walking to school. I don't want to owe you anything, Maria said, fear creeping into her voice. You owe me nothing. I owe you everything. Alessandro's voice softened. I'm not asking for your permission, Maria. I am telling you what is. You saved my son. Therefore you are mine to protect. This is not negotiable. The possessiveness in those words should have terrified her. Maybe it did. But there was something else too. Something Maria was almost ashamed to acknowledge. For the first time in 3 years, since Sophia's father had left, since Maria had been truly alone in the world, someone was promising to stand between her and the grinding, relentless hardship of her life. Someone was promising she didn't have to fight alone anymore. I need to think about this, Maria said quietly. Think all you want, Alessandro replied. It changes nothing. The protection is already in place. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a card, simple and elegant, with just a phone number embossed on it. If you ever need anything, anything at all, you call this number. Someone will answer, day or night. Maria took the card with numb fingers. The paper was thick, expensive. The number on it might as well have been a key to another world. I have taken enough of your time, Alessandro said. Tommaso will drive you wherever you need to go. Your daughter to school. You to work. I can take the bus. No. The word was absolute. Not anymore. From now on, you don't take buses. You don't walk dangerous streets. You don't struggle. He looked at her with an intensity that made her feel like she was the only person in the world. You saved my son's life. Let me give you yours back. Before Maria could respond, Alessandro nodded to Tommaso, the stone-faced man who had knocked on her door. The conversation was over. Tommaso gestured to another SUV. Miss Delgado, this way, please. Maria led Sofia to the vehicle, her mind reeling. The interior was like something from a movie. Leather seats, climate control, a screen embedded in the back of the front seat. Sofia's eyes went wide. As they settled in and the door closed, Maria looked back at Alessandro's SUV. He was still visible through the tinted window watching her. When their eyes met, he nodded once, a small gesture that somehow felt like a promise and a warning all at once. The SUV began to move, smooth and silent. As they drove away from her building, Maria looked back at her street. The other vehicles were pulling away too, following in formation. Within minutes, the block was empty again, the men in suits vanishing as if they had never been there. But Maria knew they had been real. The card in her hand proved it. Sofia was pressed against the window, staring at the neighborhoods passing by with wonder. Mama, this car is so nice. Yes, mija, Maria whispered. It is. When they reached Sofia's school, Tommaso opened the door himself. Other parents stared as Maria and Sofia emerged from the luxury vehicle. Maria felt their eyes, their judgment, their curiosity. She held Sofia's hand and walked her to the entrance, kissed her goodbye as always, and watched her daughter disappear into the building. When she returned to the SUV, Tommaso was waiting. Where is your work, Miss Delgado? Maria gave him the address of the diner. As they drove, she stared out the window at the familiar streets, seeing them differently now. The dealers Alessandro had mentioned were gone from their usual corners. Just gone. A storefront that had been covered in graffiti had been cleaned overnight. Even the potholes seemed less prominent. Was this his doing? Could one man's influence extend so far so quickly? They arrived at the diner. Through the window, Maria could see Frank, her manager, talking to someone. A man in a suit. Not one of Alessandro's men, but expensive-looking nonetheless. Frank's face was red, his expression anxious. Maria got out of the SUV. "Thank you," she said to Tommaso. "I will be nearby," he replied. "When your shift ends, I will drive you home." "That's not necessary, Miss Delgado." Tommaso's stone face softened just slightly. "Mr. Vitale's protection is not optional. Please, make this easy." Maria nodded and walked into the diner. Frank saw her immediately and his face went pale. He rushed over, his earlier gruffness completely gone. "Maria, there you are. I was just talking to—" "Never mind." He laughed nervously. "Look, about yesterday, about being late, don't worry about it, water under the bridge. And actually, I was thinking, you deserve a raise. You're one of our best servers, really reliable." Maria stared at him. In 3 years of working here, Frank had never given anyone a raise, had never called anyone reliable, had never laughed nervously. "A raise," she repeated. "Yeah, effective immediately. $2 more an hour. How does that sound?" It sounded impossible. It sounded like magic. It sounded like Alessandro Vitale's reach extended into every corner of her life. "That sounds good," Maria said slowly. "Great, great." Frank was practically sweating. "So, get started whenever you're ready. Take your time. No rush." Maria put on her apron in a daze. The other servers were staring at her with wide eyes. One of them, Jenny, leaned over and whispered, "What did you do? Frank's never been that nice to anyone in his life." "I don't know," Maria whispered back. But that was a lie. She knew exactly what had happened. Throughout her shift, she couldn't stop thinking about the card in her pocket, about Alessandro's dark eyes, about the way he had said, "You are mine to protect," as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She thought about the little boy in the lake, about his blue lips and desperate coughs, about the weight of his body in her arms. She had saved a life. And in doing so, she had stepped into a world she didn't understand, where powerful men made streets go silent and poverty vanished with a word. Maria didn't know whether to feel grateful or terrified. Maybe, she thought, as she poured coffee for a customer who actually said thank you for the first time ever, she could feel both. Maria's world has been turned upside down in a single day. But who is Alessandro Vitale really? And what price will Maria pay for his protection? The truth is darker and more surprising than you can imagine. Keep watching. 3 weeks passed, and Maria learned what it meant to be under Alessandro Vitale's protection. The changes came in waves, small at first, then impossible to ignore. Her landlord, who had hounded her for rent for 3 years, suddenly became accommodating, telling her not to worry about the missing $47. In fact, not to worry about rent at all for the next few months. When Maria protested, insisting she would pay, he had gone pale and stammered that everything was taken care of, that she should just accept it. The broken elevator in her building was fixed within 48 hours. The dealers who had occupied the corner of her block disappeared, replaced by normal people waiting for buses, walking dogs, living their lives without looking over their shoulders. The graffiti vanished from storefronts. Even the streetlights that had been broken for months suddenly worked again. At the warehouse, her supervisor, the one who had screamed at her for being too slow, now spoke to her with careful politeness. He never raised his voice. He never threatened her hours. In fact, he gave her the easier assignments, the ones that didn't destroy her back and shoulders. At the diner, Frank's sudden kindness continued. The raise was real. Her tips mysteriously improved, as if customers had been instructed to be generous. She found herself making more in a week than she used to make in a month. And everywhere Maria went, she felt eyes watching her. Not threatening eyes, protective ones. She would catch glimpses of men in suits standing at the edges of her vision, always maintaining a respectful distance, never approaching, but always there. When she walked Sophia to school, there was always a black car somewhere on the street. When she took the bus to work, someone was always watching. At first, it made her nervous. Then gradually she began to feel something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Sophia noticed the changes too. Her daughter, who had learned to be quiet and careful, who never asked for anything, slowly began to smile more. She told Maria that the older kids who used to tease her on the bus had stopped, that her teacher had suddenly taken more interest in her work, that the school lunch lady gave her extra helpings. Even Sophia's worn sneakers were mysteriously replaced. Maria had come home one day to find a package outside her door. No return address, containing new shoes in exactly Sophia's size. And not cheap shoes, quality ones that would last. Maria had tried to refuse them, had looked for Tommaso or any of Alessandro's men to return the gift, but they were nowhere to be found that day. Sophia's old sneakers had holes in them. The new ones fit perfectly. Maria had kept them. That was how it went with Alessandro's protection. It was impossible to refuse because it came whether you wanted it or not. 3 weeks and Maria's life had transformed. She was sleeping better because she wasn't drowning in anxiety about money. She was eating better because she could afford to. Sophia was happier, healthier, safer. But Maria couldn't shake the feeling that she was living in a beautiful trap, that all of this had a price she didn't yet understand. On a Thursday evening, as October brought cooler air to New York, Maria was walking home from her shift at the diner when a familiar black SUV pulled up beside her. Tommaso emerged from the driver's side. "Miss Delgado, Mr. Vitale requests your presence." Maria's heart jumped. She hadn't seen Alessandro since that morning 3 weeks ago. His protection had surrounded her, but he had remained invisible, a presence felt but never seen. "Now?" she asked. "If you are willing. It will not take long." Maria thought about Sophia, who was at her after-school program for another hour. She thought about refusing, but curiosity won out. She had questions that had been building for 3 weeks. "Okay," she said. The drive took them out of the Bronx, across the river into Manhattan. The buildings grew taller, cleaner, more expensive. They entered a neighborhood where doormen stood at every entrance, where the streets were pristine, where the very air seemed to cost money. The SUV pulled up to a high-rise that gleamed with glass and steel. Tommaso led her inside, through a lobby that looked like a museum, all marble and art and whispered conversations. They took an elevator that moved so smoothly, Maria barely felt it. The numbers climbed. 20 floors. 30. 40. They stopped at the 45th floor. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse apartment. Maria stepped out and forgot how to breathe. The space was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the entire city, lights spreading out in all directions like fallen stars. The furniture was elegant and minimal, the kind that looked simple but cost a fortune. Art hung on the walls, pieces that belonged in galleries. Everything was perfect, pristine, untouchable. And standing by the windows looking out at his city was Alessandro Vitale. He turned when he heard the elevator. He wasn't wearing a suit jacket, just dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. It was the most casual Maria had seen him, and somehow it made him more intimidating, more real. "Maria," he said, and the use of her first name felt intimate in a way that made her uncomfortable. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." He gestured to a couch that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Maria sat carefully, feeling completely out of place. Alessandro sat across from her, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. "How have the past 3 weeks been for you?" "Different," Maria said honestly. "Very different. Good different or bad different?" Maria considered the question. "I don't know yet." Alessandro's lips curved slightly. "An honest answer? I appreciate that. Most people tell me what they think I want to hear." "I'm not most people." "No," he agreed. "You are not." He leaned forward slightly. "I asked you here because I wanted to see how you were adjusting. My men tell me you seem uncomfortable with the protection, that you try to refuse things. The shoes for your daughter, for example." Maria felt her face flush. "I can provide for Sophia myself." "Can you?" The question wasn't cruel, just direct. "Before 3 weeks ago, your daughter was wearing shoes 2 sizes too small. You were eating 1 meal a day so she could eat 2. You were working yourself into an early grave and still falling behind. Is that providing?" The words stung because they were true. Maria looked down at her hands. "I was doing my best." "I know." Alessandro's voice softened. "And your best was remarkable. You raised a beautiful, kind, intelligent daughter with nothing. But now you don't have to do it alone." "But why?" Maria looked up at him. "I saved your son. I understand being grateful. But this goes beyond gratitude. You've changed my entire life." "Why?" Alessandro was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes studying her. Then he stood and walked to the windows, looking out at the city sprawling below. Do you know what I do, Maria? The real question. Not the business I claim on tax forms. The truth. Maria's mouth went dry. I've heard rumors. Since that first day. People talk. And what do they say? That you're connected. That you run things. That people are afraid of you. She paused. That you're in the Mafia. Alessandro didn't react to the word. He just continued looking out at the city. The Mafia. Such a dramatic term. So loaded with movie images and stereotypes, but yes, in essence, that is what people believe. And they are not entirely wrong. He turned back to her. I control businesses, Maria. Legitimate and otherwise. I have influence over politicians, police, judges, entire neighborhoods. People work for me, people fear me. I have built an empire through intelligence, ruthlessness, and an absolute refusal to show weakness. Maria's heart was pounding, but she forced herself to ask, have you killed people? Yes. No hesitation. No justification. Just the truth. Stark and cold. Maria should have been terrified. She should have run. But something in Alessandro's eyes kept her frozen. I have done terrible things, he continued. Things I will never be proud of. Things I can never take back. I have built my power on fear and blood. And I have told myself it was necessary, that it was the only way to survive in my world, to protect what was mine. He moved closer, sitting back down across from her. And then a woman I had never met jumped into a lake to save my son. Risked her own life without hesitation. Asked for nothing. Expected nothing. Just did what was right because it was right. His voice dropped lower. Do you know how rare that is in my world, Maria? How incomprehensible. Everyone wants something. Everyone has an angle. Everyone operates from fear or greed or ambition. But you just saved a drowning child because he was a child. Anyone would have. Stop saying that, Alessandro interrupted, his voice sharp. Stop diminishing what you did. Most people would have watched. Most people would have called for help and waited for someone else to risk themselves. You didn't. And in that moment you showed me something I had almost forgotten existed. What? Maria whispered. Goodness. Pure, uncomplicated goodness. Alessandro's eyes were intense. I have spent 20 years building power, crushing enemies, making people fear me. And in 20 seconds you reminded me why any of it matters. You reminded me that there are still people in this world worth protecting. He leaned back. So yes, I have transformed your life. I have used my influence to make your struggles disappear. Not because I expect anything from you. Not because I want to own you. But because you deserve better than what this city was giving you. And because I can provide it. Maria struggled to process his words. I don't want to be a charity case. You're not. You're... Alessandro paused, searching for words. You're a reminder. A reminder of what's important. What's worth fighting for. He looked at her with something that might have been vulnerability. My children adore you. Marco talks about the brave lady who saved him. He drew you a picture. Isabella wants to meet you. Your children know about me. They know you saved their brother's life. They know you are under my protection. Marco is 5 years old, Maria. He doesn't understand death yet, not really. But he understands that he was in the water, that he couldn't breathe, and that you pulled him out. He calls you his angel. Maria felt tears prickling at her eyes. I'm not an angel. Maybe not. But you are good. And in my world that is rarer than angels. Alessandro stood again, his posture shifting back to the commanding presence she had first encountered. I brought you here to tell you that my protection is not temporary. It is not contingent on your gratitude or your compliance. You saved my son. That debt can never be fully repaid. So your life, your daughter's life, will be better because of me. Not as a gift, as a debt. And what if I don't want this? Maria asked. Though even as she said it, she knew it was too late. She had already accepted the new shoes for Sophia, the fixed elevator, the raise at work. She had already started living in the world Alessandro had created for her. Then I will respect your wishes, Alessandro said quietly. If you truly want me to withdraw, I will. The protection will remain, you and Sophia will remain safe, but the rest, the financial help, the improvements to your life, I will stop if you ask me to. He met her eyes. But ask yourself honestly, Maria, do you want to go back? Do you want to work 2 jobs for poverty wages? Do you want to worry about rent and food and whether Sophia will have what she needs? Do you want to be invisible again? The questions hit like physical blows, because Maria knew the answer. She didn't want to go back. She hated herself a little for it, for how easily she had adapted to this new life, how quickly she had gotten used to not struggling. But the truth was the truth. "No," she whispered. "I don't want to go back." Alessandro nodded, and something that might have been relief crossed his face. "Then don't. Accept what I am offering. Let me repay my debt by making your life easier. You deserve it." Maria looked around the penthouse, at the luxury she could never imagine affording, at the city spread out below like Alessandro owned it. She thought about her tiny apartment with its cracked ceiling, about Sofia sleeping on a pull-out couch, about the years of exhaustion and struggle. "What do you get out of this?" she asked. "Really?" Alessandro was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised her. "Peace. Knowing that the woman who saved my son doesn't have to suffer. Knowing that there is at least one person in my life who asks for nothing, who doesn't fear me, who is real." He paused. "You make me want to be better, Maria. Just by existing. That is worth more than you know." Maria didn't know what to say to that. The admission felt too raw, too honest from a man who was supposed to be ruthless and cold. "I should go," she said finally. "I need to pick up Sofia." "Of course." Alessandro gestured to Tommaso, who had been standing silently by the elevator. "Take her wherever she needs to go." Maria stood and Alessandro walked her to the elevator. As the doors opened, he spoke one more time. "Maria, if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you use that card I gave you. My debt to you is permanent." Maria nodded and stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, she saw Alessandro returning to his windows, to his view of the city he controlled, a solitary figure in his perfect penthouse. During the ride to pick up Sofia, Maria stared out the window, her mind churning. She had walked into Alessandro's world thinking she would get answers. Instead, she had gotten more questions. But she had also gotten the truth. Alessandro Vitale was dangerous. He was powerful. He had done terrible things. And he had also saved her life in a way that had nothing to do with physical rescue. Was it wrong to accept help from someone like him? Was it wrong to let her daughter benefit from his protection? Maria didn't know. All she knew was that Sofia would have new clothes for winter, that they would have heat when it got cold, that she would never again have to choose between eating and paying rent. For now, that had to be enough. Alessandro Vitale has revealed his truth, but Maria's life is about to take an even more unexpected turn. The peaceful protection she's known is about to be tested in ways she never imagined. Don't miss what happens next. 2 months had passed since that evening in Alessandro's penthouse. Thanksgiving came and went. Maria cooked a real meal for the first time in years, with turkey and stuffing and all the sides Sofia had only seen in movies. They ate at their small table, and Sofia's laughter filled the apartment in a way it never had before. December arrived with snow and cold winds, but Maria and Sofia were warm. Their radiator worked perfectly. Sofia had a winter coat that actually fit. Maria no longer worked at the warehouse, having received what Tommaso called a generous severance package. She kept her job at the diner because she wanted to work, wanted to feel useful, but now it was a choice, not a desperate necessity. Life was good, better than good, almost perfect, which is why Maria should have known something would go wrong. It happened on a Wednesday evening, a week before Christmas. Maria was walking home from the diner, her breath misting in the cold air, her mind on the presents she could finally afford to buy Sofia. Real presents. Not thrift store finds or dollar store toys. Actual gifts that a 7-year-old girl would love. She was 2 blocks from her building when she noticed the car. It was parked on the corner, engine running, windows tinted dark. Not one of Alessandro's SUVs. This was older, dirtier, more dangerous looking, and it was following her, moving slowly as she walked. Maria's heart began to race. She quickened her pace. The car kept up. She was about to run when the car pulled ahead and stopped directly in her path. The back door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, thin, with a scarred face and dead eyes. His clothes were expensive but worn in a way that suggested he didn't care about appearance. And he was smiling at her, a smile that made Maria's blood run cold. "Maria Delgado," he said, his voice rough like sandpaper. "We need to talk." "I don't know you," Maria said, taking a step back. "No, but I know you. Everyone knows you now." The woman under Alessandro Vitale's protection, the untouchable, his smile widened. "I've been watching you." seeing how he takes care of you. Very sweet. Very romantic. Maria looked around desperately. The street was empty. Where were Alessandro's men? Where were the watchers who were supposed to always be there? The scarred man noticed her looking. They're not coming. We made sure of that. Cost us 3 men to create a distraction big enough to pull them away. But we needed to talk to you alone. Just for a few minutes. What do you want? Maria's voice shook. Information. The man took a step closer. Alessandro Vitale killed my brother 6 months ago. Over a territory dispute. Shot him in the head and dumped him in the river like garbage. His dead eyes flickered with something dark. I want revenge. And you're going to help me get it. I don't know anything, Maria said quickly. I'm not part of his business. I just saved his son. That's all. That's all? The man laughed, a harsh sound. You think Alessandro Vitale transformed someone's entire life over one good deed? No, sweetheart. There's more to this. Maybe you don't see it yet, but you will. You're important to him, which makes you important to me. He pulled something from his jacket. A knife. Long and cruel-looking. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get in this car. You're going to tell me everything you know about Alessandro's routines, his security, his weaknesses. And if you do that, I'll let you go. You can go back to your daughter and pretend this never happened. Maria's mind was racing. Sophia was at home, safe with a neighbor who watched her until Maria got back. But if Maria got in that car, she knew she would never come out. This man wasn't interested in information. He was interested in hurting Alessandro by hurting someone Alessandro protected. No, Maria said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. The scarred man's smile faded. That wasn't a request. I said no. Maria took another step back. You can kill me right here if you want, but I'm not getting in that car. For a moment, the man looked genuinely surprised. Then his expression hardened. You think Alessandro Vitale will save you? He's not even here. You're alone, and you're going to learn that his protection means nothing when he's not around to enforce it. He lunged forward, grabbing Maria's arm with bruising force. She screamed, trying to pull away, but his grip was iron. He started dragging her toward the car, and then the world exploded with sound. Gunshots. 3 of them, sharp cracks that echoed between buildings. The scarred man's grip released. He stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock, looking down at the 3 holes in his chest that were rapidly blooming red. He fell to his knees, then forward onto his face, dead before he hit the ground. Maria stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Footsteps approached. She turned to see Tommaso walking toward her from the shadows, a gun still in his hand. His stone face was carved with fury. Miss Delgado, he said, his voice tight with emotion she had never heard from him before. Are you hurt? Maria couldn't speak. She just shook her head. 2 more of Alessandro's men appeared from different directions, moving with lethal efficiency. They checked the scarred man's body, then quickly searched the car. One of them spoke into a phone in rapid Italian. Tommaso holstered his weapon and gently took Maria's arm, the same arm the dead man had grabbed. We need to move. Now. There may be more. He led her to one of the SUVs that materialized from nowhere. Maria was shaking so hard she could barely walk. Tommaso helped her into the back seat, then got in beside her. Sophia, Maria managed to say. My daughter. She's at home. She's safe, Tommaso said firmly. 2 of our men are already with her. They will bring her to you. Where are we going? To Mr. Vitale. He needs to see that you are unharmed. The drive passed in a blur. Maria kept seeing the scarred man's dead eyes, kept hearing the gunshots, kept feeling his grip on her arm. She had been seconds away from being taken, from being used as a weapon against Alessandro, from never seeing Sophia again. They arrived at the same building where Maria had met with Alessandro 2 months ago. But this time, they took her to a different floor, lower down, to what looked like a private office. Dark wood, leather furniture, walls lined with books, and Alessandro, pacing like a caged animal, his face carved with an emotion Maria had never seen on him before. Rage. Pure, absolute rage. When he saw Maria, he crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed her shoulders, his eyes scanning her face, her body, checking for injuries. Did he hurt you? Did he touch you? I'm fine, Maria said, though her voice was shaking. Tommaso stopped him. I'm fine. Alessandro's hands were trembling against her shoulders. He grabbed you. I saw the security footage. He put his hands on you. But I'm okay, I promise. Alessandro released her and turned away, his hands clenching into fists. When he spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. Do you know who that was? Salvatore Russo, a rival, a nothing, a cockroach who thought he could touch what is mine. He wanted information, Maria said, about you. He wanted revenge for his brother. His brother was a drug dealer who killed 3 people over a turf dispute. I put him down like the animal he was. Alessandro turned back to her, and Maria saw something terrifying in his eyes. And now his brother is dead too, along with everyone who helped him tonight. Every single one of them. Maria's blood ran cold. You killed them all? Not yet, but I will. Alessandro's voice was ice. By morning, Salvatore's entire operation will be gone. Every man who knew about this plan, every person who provided information, every driver, every lookout, every associate. He paused. They need to understand what happens when someone touches you. Alessandro, Maria whispered, you can't kill people because of me. I can, and I will. He moved closer, his intensity almost overwhelming. You don't understand, Maria. In my world, respect is everything. Power is everything. If I let this pass, if I show any weakness, every enemy I have will see you as a target. They will come for you again and again, trying to hurt me through you. Then maybe you should stop protecting me, Maria said desperately. Maybe I should just go back to being invisible. No. The word was absolute. You will never be invisible again. You are under my protection, and that protection is sacred. Anyone who threatens you threatens me, and I will not allow it. He took her hands, his grip gentle despite the fury in his eyes. I failed you tonight. My men were distracted. Someone got through. That will never happen again. From this moment forward, the security around you will triple. You will have guards with you at all times. Your daughter will have escorts to school. Your apartment will be watched 24 hours a day. That's not a life, Maria said, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. That's a prison. That's safety. Alessandro's voice softened slightly. I know it seems excessive, but you need to understand something, Maria. You are not just some woman I'm helping out of gratitude. You are... He paused, struggling with words. You matter to me. Your daughter matters to me. What you represent matters to me. And I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone hurt you. Maria looked into his dark eyes and saw the truth there. This wasn't just about debt or gratitude or even protection. Alessandro Vitale had somehow made her and Sofia part of his world, part of what he protected, part of what he valued above all else. And in his world, there was no middle ground. You were either safe or you were dead. I'm scared, Maria admitted. Not of you. Of this. Of what my life has become. I know. Alessandro released her hands and stepped back. And I'm sorry. I never wanted you to see this side of my world. I wanted you to just receive the benefits without understanding the cost. But now you know. This is the price of being under my protection. You are untouchable, but that makes you a target. You are safe, but you are also forever marked as mine. There was a knock at the door. Tommaso entered with Sofia, who immediately ran to Maria and threw her arms around her mother's waist. Mama, the men said we had to come here. They said you were okay, but I was worried. I'm fine, mija, Maria said, holding her daughter tight. Everything's fine, but it wasn't fine. Maria could see Alessandro watching them, his expression softening as he looked at Sofia, and she understood with sudden terrible clarity what had really happened tonight. This wasn't about debt anymore. This wasn't about gratitude or repayment. Alessandro Vitale had claimed them, not as possessions, but as something far more valuable in his world, as family, as people worth fighting for, as the good thing in his life that he would defend with everything he had, and there was no going back from that. Sofia, Alessandro said gently, kneeling down to her level. Do you remember me? Sofia nodded shyly. You're Marco's papa. That's right. And your mama saved Marco's life, which means you and your mama are very special to me. He smiled, and it transformed his face into something almost human. I'm going to make sure nothing bad ever happens to you. Do you understand? Sofia looked at Maria, then back at Alessandro. Like a bodyguard? Exactly like a bodyguard. The best bodyguards in the world. Cool, Sofia said, with the simple acceptance of a 7-year-old. If only it were that simple, Maria thought. Alessandro stood and addressed Tommaso. Take them to the safe house, the one in Westchester. Full security team. No one in or out without my approval. We can't go to a safe house, Maria protested. Sofia has school. I have work. For 1 week, Alessandro interrupted firmly. Just 1 week while I clean up this mess. Then you can return to your normal life. But with better security. This is not negotiable, Maria. Maria wanted to argue. She wanted to take Sofia and run far away from this world of violence and death and dark-eyed men who spoke of burning cities. But when she looked at Alessandro, she saw something that stopped her. He was terrified. Not of his enemies, not of violence, but of losing her, of failing to protect her, of having her hurt because of him. In that moment, Maria understood that Alessandro Vitali was not just a ruthless crime boss. He was also a father who had nearly lost his son, a man who had been reminded that the things he loved could be taken away in an instant, and he had decided that Maria and Sofia were among those things he loved. 1 week, Maria said quietly. Then we go home. Alessandro nodded, relief flooding his features. 1 week, I promise. The safe house turned out to be a mansion in Westchester, surrounded by walls and guards and every security measure imaginable. It had a pool, a movie theater, and a bedroom for Sofia that looked like something from a fairy tale. Sofia was delighted. Maria was exhausted. That night, after Sofia had fallen asleep in her princess bed, Maria stood at the window of her own room, looking out at the manicured grounds, at the guards patrolling the perimeter, at the walls that kept the world out. She thought about the scarred man lying dead on her street. She thought about Alessandro's promise to eliminate everyone involved. She thought about the life she had lived 2 months ago, invisible and struggling but free. She thought about the life she had now, safe and comfortable, but forever marked by a powerful man's protection. And she wondered if she had made the right choice by jumping into that lake. But then she thought about Sofia's laughter when she saw her new room. She thought about not worrying about rent or food or whether her daughter would have enough. She thought about Alessandro's words, "You matter to me." Maybe there was no right choice. Maybe there was only the choice she had made and the consequences she would have to live with. Maria touched her arm where the scarred man had grabbed her. The bruises were already forming, dark purple marks in the shape of fingers. She was safe. She was protected. She was untouchable. And that, she was beginning to understand, came with a price that had nothing to do with money. The week passed slowly. Sofia played in the enormous house, swam in the heated pool despite the December cold, watched movies in the theater. She thought it was an adventure, a vacation in a mansion with friendly guards who brought her cookies and taught her card games. Maria couldn't share her daughter's innocent joy. She kept thinking about the dead man, about the violence that had erupted so suddenly, about the fact that more people were dying because of her. On the 7th day, Alessandro came to visit. He looked tired, older than his years, with shadows under his eyes. But when he saw Maria, he smiled. It's done. All of it. Everyone involved has been handled. You can go home now. How many? Maria asked quietly. Alessandro understood immediately. Does it matter? Yes. He studied her for a long moment. 17. Russo's entire inner circle. The men who helped him. The people who provided information about your schedule. His voice hardened. They all knew what they were doing. They all chose to target you. And they all paid the price. 17 people. Dead because of her. Because she had saved a boy from drowning. I didn't want this, Maria whispered. I know. Alessandro moved closer. But this is my world, Maria. This is how it works. Strength is the only language people understand. Mercy is seen as weakness. If I had let this pass, if I had shown any hesitation, you would never be safe. Every enemy would see you as an easy target. He reached out and gently touched the bruises on her arm, his jaw tightening. These marks will fade, but the message I sent will last forever. Touch Maria Delgado or her daughter, and you die. No exceptions, no negotiations, just death. I don't want to be responsible for more deaths, Maria said. You're not responsible. I am. Alessandro's voice was firm. Every choice I made, every action I took, that's on me. Not you. You just saved a child from drowning. Everything else is my choice. He stepped back. Tommaso will take you home. Your apartment has been upgraded. Better locks, security cameras, reinforced door. A guard will be stationed in the building at all times. You'll have a phone with a direct line to my security team, and you'll have permission to resume your normal life. Work, school, everything. Normal, Maria repeated with a bitter laugh. Nothing about this is normal. No, Alessandro agreed. It's better than normal, it's safe. He paused. I know you don't like living this way. I know you value your independence, but please, Maria, let me protect you. It's all I can offer in return for what you gave me. Maria looked at this powerful, dangerous man who was asking her permission for something he had already decided. I don't have a choice, do I? There's always a choice, Alessandro said softly. You can refuse. You can take Sofia and disappear. I would help you do it, set you up somewhere far away with new identities, money to start over. If that's what you truly want, I will make it happen. The offer surprised her. You would let us go? If that's what makes you happy. Your happiness, your safety, your peace of mind, that's all that matters to me. His dark eyes were sincere. I don't want you to feel trapped, Maria. I want you to choose this life. Choose to accept my protection. Choose to let me help you. Maria thought about running, about starting over somewhere new. But then she thought about Sofia's face when she talked about her new friends at school, about the stability they finally had, about the fact that for the first time in years, she wasn't exhausted down to her bones. She thought about Alessandro's words. You matter to me. I'll stay, Maria said finally, but on one condition. Alessandro raised an eyebrow. Name it. No more secrets. If something is happening that affects me or Sofia, I want to know about it. All of it. I can't live in the dark anymore. For a moment, Alessandro looked like he might refuse. Then he nodded slowly. Agreed. Complete transparency. You'll know everything that concerns your safety. Then we'll stay, and I'll accept your protection. Maria took a breath. But Alessandro, please don't kill anyone else because of me. I can't live with that weight. I can't promise that, Alessandro said honestly. If someone threatens you, I will eliminate that threat. That's not negotiable. But I promise I won't be reckless. I won't create unnecessary violence. Is that acceptable? It wasn't, but it was the best she would get. Okay, Maria said. They returned to the Bronx the next day. Maria's apartment did indeed have new security. Subtle but comprehensive. Sofia was thrilled to be home, immediately resuming her normal routine with the resilience of childhood. Life returned to something resembling normal. Maria worked at the diner. Sofia went to school. They ate dinner together, watched television, did homework at the kitchen table. But everything was different now. Maria could feel the guards watching. She knew Tommaso was never far away. She understood that 17 people had died to keep her safe, and she knew that she was no longer just a struggling single mother from the Bronx. She was Maria Delgado, the woman who saved Alessandro Vitale's son, the woman under the protection of the most powerful man on the East Coast, the woman who had jumped into a lake and emerged into a completely different life. Christmas came 2 weeks later. On Christmas Eve, a knock came at Maria's door. When she opened it, Tommaso stood there holding 2 large boxes wrapped in elegant paper. From Mr. Vitale, he said simply. For you and Sofia. He wishes you a Merry Christmas. Inside the boxes were gifts that took Maria's breath away. For Sofia, a collection of books, art supplies, and a beautiful doll that she had mentioned wanting once, months ago. Alessandro must have remembered, must have been paying attention. For Maria, there was a winter coat, the kind she had admired in store windows but never dreamed of owning. Soft wool, perfectly tailored in a deep blue that matched her eyes, and underneath it an envelope. Inside was a letter in Alessandro's precise handwriting. Maria, 2 months ago, you gave me back my son. You gave me back my reason for living. I know the path I've brought you down is difficult. I know you struggle with the violence and the fear. But please know that every action I take, every measure I implement, is to ensure that you and Sofia can live without the struggles you once knew. You deserve peace. You deserve safety. You deserve to see your daughter grow up happy and healthy. That is all I want to give you. Thank you for saving Marco. Thank you for accepting my protection. Thank you for being the reminder that goodness still exists in this dark world. Merry Christmas. Alessandro Maria read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. This dangerous man, this killer, this crime boss, was thanking her, was treating her like she mattered, like she was important. And the truth was, she had begun to matter to him. She could see it in the way he looked at her, in the way he spoke to her, in the way he had burned down an entire organization because someone had grabbed her arm. Maria didn't know what to do with that knowledge. She didn't know how to feel about being important to Alessandro Vitale. All she knew was that when Sofia opened her presents on Christmas morning and squealed with delight, when Maria put on her new coat and felt warm for the first time in years, when they sat together eating a Christmas dinner that Maria hadn't had to worry about affording, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Gratitude, not just for the gifts, but for the chance to give her daughter a better life, for the opportunity to stop fighting quite so hard just to survive, for the knowledge that someone powerful was watching over them, keeping them safe. The price was high. The cost was violence and fear and the weight of knowing people had died because of her. But the alternative was going back to the cracked ceiling, the empty fridge, the exhaustion that lived in her bones, the constant terror that she couldn't provide enough for her daughter. Maria had made her choice. She had accepted Alessandro's protection, and she would live with the consequences. 3 months later, on a warm spring evening, Maria was walking home from the diner when a familiar black SUV pulled up. But this time, when the door opened, it wasn't Tommaso who emerged. It was Alessandro himself. He looked different in the early evening light, less severe, almost approachable. He smiled when he saw her, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Maria, do you have a moment?" "Of course," she said, her heart beating faster. "Walk with me." He gestured to the park, the same park where she had saved Marco 6 months ago. They walked in silence for a while, past joggers and families, past the lake where it had all begun. Finally, Alessandro spoke. "Marco asks about you constantly. He wants to see you again. Properly this time. Not just know that you exist, but actually spend time with you." Maria's throat tightened. "I'd like that." "Would you?" Alessandro stopped walking and turned to face her. "Would you be willing to meet my children? To come to my home for dinner? To let them thank you in person?" "You don't have to." "I want to," Alessandro interrupted. "My children need to understand that there are people in this world worth honoring. People who do the right thing without expecting reward. I want them to know you, Maria. The real you. Not just the story of the brave woman who saved their brother." Maria thought about refusing, about maintaining the distance between her world and his. But then she thought about a 5-year-old boy who called her his angel, about an 8-year-old girl who wanted to meet her, about Alessandro's dark eyes filled with hope. "Okay," she said. "I'll come. Sofia too." Alessandro's smile transformed his face. "Thank you. This means more than you know." They stood there in the fading light, two people from completely different worlds connected by a moment of pure instinct when Maria had jumped into a lake to save a drowning child. "Do you regret it?" Alessandro asked suddenly. "Saving him? Knowing everything that came after?" Maria thought about the question carefully. She thought about the violence, the fear, the weight of knowing 17 people had died. But she also thought about Sofia's laughter, about Christmas morning, about not being invisible anymore. "No," she said honestly, "I don't regret saving him. I would do it again. But I wish the world was different. I wish your protection didn't require violence. I wish being safe didn't mean other people had to die." "So do I," Alessandro said quietly. "But we live in the world we have, not the world we wish for." He looked at her with those intense dark eyes. "You've changed my life, Maria. You've reminded me why I fight, why I build, why I protect. You've given me back something I thought I'd lost forever." "What?" "Hope. The belief that people can still be good. That kindness still exists." He paused. "Thank you for that." Before Maria could respond, before she could process the raw emotion in his voice, Alessandro's phone rang. He answered it, his face immediately shifting back to the dangerous crime boss she knew he was. He spoke in rapid Italian, his voice cold and commanding. When he hung up, he looked at Maria with regret. "I have to go, business that cannot wait." He started toward the SUV, then turned back. "Next Sunday, dinner at my home, 6 o'clock. Tommaso will pick you and Sofia up." "Alessandro," Maria called out, stopping him. "Thank you, for everything. I know I don't say it enough." He nodded, something soft and vulnerable crossing his face. "You don't need to thank me, Maria. You gave me back my son. I can never repay that debt." Then he was gone, the SUV disappearing into traffic, leaving Maria standing alone by the lake where everything had changed. She looked at the water, calm and still in the spring evening. 6 months ago she had been invisible, struggling, forgotten by the world. Now she was seen, protected, important to one of the most powerful men in the city. Maria didn't know if that was better or worse. She only knew it was her reality now. She had jumped into a lake to save a drowning child, and in doing so, she had saved herself. Not from poverty or struggle, but from the belief that goodness didn't matter, that helping others was pointless, that one person couldn't make a difference. She had made a difference, she had saved a life, and that life's father had decided she was worth saving in return. It wasn't the life she had planned, it wasn't the life she had imagined. But as Maria walked home through streets that were now safe, past neighbors who now greeted her with respect, toward an apartment where her daughter waited with homework and stories about her day, she realized something important. Sometimes the life you don't plan is exactly the life you need. Maria Delgado had jumped into a lake as a struggling single mother barely surviving. She had emerged as someone who mattered, someone who was protected, someone who had reminded a dangerous man that goodness still existed in the world, and that, she decided, was worth all the complicated feelings, all the fear, all the weight of knowing her life would never be simple again. She had saved a child, and in return a powerful man had saved her. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was something far more complex, far more real, but it was hers. And for the first time in years, Maria walked through her door, kissed her daughter's forehead, and felt something she had almost forgotten existed: peace. Maria's one act of courage changed everything. She jumped into that lake as an invisible woman struggling to survive, and emerged as someone untouchable, protected by the most powerful man on the East Coast. Her life was transformed, not by magic or luck, but by pure, uncomplicated goodness in a world that had almost forgotten what that looked like. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply help someone in need, without thinking about the cost, without expecting anything in return. Maria did that, and it changed not just her life, but the lives of everyone around her. If this story moved you, if Maria's journey resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel. We bring you powerful stories of real human experiences, of courage, of transformation, of the unexpected ways life can change in a single moment. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us for more incredible stories that will make you feel, think, and believe in the power of doing the right thing. Thank you for watching. And remember, you never know when one act of kindness might change everything. Subscribe now for more powerful stories.